like to put on record the comments made, react to the comments made by Michael Savage, who's a DJ in the United States, a political commentator, been denied entry in here, who's actually, in reaction to the fact that he can't come here, has told his 10 million audience not to visit the UK. I think that's an absolute scandal. I tell him, or rather his listeners, ignore the DJ, come to the UK, enjoy the holiday, enjoy the actual exchange rate that we have here, and actually understand why the DJ himself is talking out of his backside.
My statement is clear, and let me read it again. Let me read it again. I have to find the page. I was informed that the Department of Justice opinions have concluded that the use of enhanced interrogations was legal. The only mention of waterboarding was that in the briefing was that it was not being employed. When my staff person, I'm sorry, the page is out of order. 5 months later, my staff person told me that there had been a briefing, informed me that there had been a briefing, that a letter had been sent. I was not briefed on what was in that briefing. I was just informed the briefing had taken place.
Well, the clowns are at it again. The clowns are at it again. So someone in the British Parliament is afraid of the boycott that may be growing against the Brits unless they take my name off the list. And he calls me a DJ. I guess that in England, anyone who speaks who's not a member of Parliament is a DJ. Parliament is a member of a DJ, because a DJ is someone who spins records. That's a disc jockey. But I guess they have to keep throwing in their little barbs, their little men, Tobias Elwood. And then, of course, there's poor old Nancy Pelosi caught in her own web. Some would say hung by her own petard. I have nothing against Nancy Pelosi, truthfully, other than her politics. Let's start with that. But I remember I had Nancy Pelosi on my show when I was a mere local talk show host, which has to be over 10 years ago, when she was representing the interests of Taiwan. She was a very nice lady. What's happened here is that Nancy Pelosi is an example of power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. But even more to the point is that Nancy Pelosi is hanging around with the wrong people. Nancy Pelosi is trapped in her own web because she was listening to the jerks in the ACLU. She doesn't understand that if it comes down to a shooting match between the degenerate anti-American vermin in the ACLU and the patriots in the CIA, do I have to tell you who's going to win? It's not going to be the pockmarked degenerate in the ACLU who started to look like Robespierre to me lately. The accusatory statements. She's been listening to these vermin in San Francisco in the ACLU who had her believe that they had the CIA on the ropes. She didn't understand that the old establishment is not quite dead yet. Apparently she's been listening to the wrong people. And there's no question that she was briefed. And there's no question in my mind that they did the right thing at the time. And I would like to see what events were prevented as a result of waterboarding. We are told by the CIA that an attack on Los Angeles was prevented. Well, I'd like to see that. In fact, Vice President Dick Cheney has asked to have these tapes released, or shall I say the notes or the records, showing exactly what attacks were prevented. And Congress won't do so because they know it will embarrass Nancy Pelosi. But I really want to talk about these topics, of course, and my topic is radio talk shows Michael Savage banned from entering the UK, and the fact that I have appealed to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The Associated Press called me prior to the show and said, isn't it ironic that you're asking a person that you criticized for so many years? I said, no. She was a senator then, and she's a Secretary of State now. She is in a new position where she's supposed to represent not only the interests of the United States government, but the interests of the United States citizenry. And so therefore she now has an opportunity to rise above petty politics or partisan politics and represent a man whose politics that she abhors. That would show her to be a true stateswoman. That would show her to be presidential material. But if she continues to remain a brittle partisan politician, she will never make it to the presidency. So this is actually a golden opportunity for Hillary Clinton, in case you don't know it, all you liberals. Now, a new article came out this morning from the San Francisco Chronicle. Carla Marinucci wrote a new article called Here's a Twist. Savage urges Clinton to take my case as human rights violation. Now, I want to say something to you that you should know. The Chronicle, or the SF Gate, had the largest number of hits they've had in modern history because of these articles about Michael Savage. And it confirms what I've been telling you. If this newspaper had only covered the other Bay Area, if this newspaper had stopped catering to the far left, if this newspaper had only shown the paper to be somewhat fair and covered several sides of an issue, in this case the minority dissident side, Michael Savage, they could still be in business. But because they became simply a sounding board for the radical left in San Francisco, they're out of business, losing, I think, $1 million a week. Now they're getting phenomenal hits because the articles are about me. Here's a twist. Conservative radio host Michael Savage urges Clinton to take my case as human rights violation. I put it up on michaelsavage.com. You can read it. And I'm going to read it to you. If you'd like to talk about Pelosi and what you think about that, the phone number is 1-800-449-8255. If you'd like to talk about my case as presented to the Honorable Hillary Clinton, you can call me on that. What do you think Hillary is going to do? Is still a good question. But I would like to read you two very important points from my position, which is that the person who put me on this list of murderers is in violation of European law. I think you need to understand this. My lawyers at the Thomas More Law Center said, I respectfully request, Mrs. Clinton, that you take all necessary action to protect Mr. Savage's rights under Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, to which both the United States and the UK are signatories. And they quote Article 19, Section 2, which I'm not going to read to you. It says, furthermore, the United Kingdom is in direct violation of Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which protects the right to freedom of expression, and they quote Article 10, number 1. And then the European Court of Human Rights, in the case of Zurich versus Turkey, number 1, this is the most important part, has held that the, quote, freedom of expression constitutes one to the essential foundations of a democratic society. And the court went on to say that this freedom of expression is not only applicable to information and ideas that are favorably received, but, here's the kicker, but also to those that offend, shock, or disturb. Now, there's no question that my comments may have offended, shocked, or disturbed some people in Britain. There's no question about it. But I will remind you that we in America are protected by our First Amendment, which was written by the most intelligent men in the history of modern civilization, the Founding Fathers, who knew the day would come that we would have a growing totalitarianism in the West, who knew that Barack Obama would become president, who sensed that one day petty dictators like Janet Napolitano would appear on the scene, and who understood that polite speech need not be protected. No one needs to protect polite speech. You all engage in it. What needed vigorous protection was impolite speech, speech that quotes, quote, offends, shocks, or disturbs. Now, if you leftists don't understand that, then you're no longer a liberal. You have become something much different than a liberal. What's interesting to me is that legitimate liberals have supported me. Illegitimate phonies who call themselves liberals continue to insult themselves by saying that Britain has a right to ban me, which they clearly do not. They're in violation of many different European Union laws. And so, yes, I am asking Hillary Clinton to represent my interests. I am an American citizen. So, the article says, Savage told the Chronicle in an interview this morning that, quote, I've been very harsh on Hillary and Bill Clinton over the years, but precisely for this reason, she should take my case. It would show that she can rise above partisan politics because Jackie Smith is in violation of the European Union's laws themselves, close quote. Good for you, Carla Marinucci, for getting it exactly right and not trying to, smear me. To put me on a least wanted list with militant Muslim clerics who call for the overthrow of Britain, with convicted Russian skinhead murderers who were imprisoned in Russia, with terrorists and neo-Nazi organizers, is slanderous, it is libelous, and it is illegal. And so I am moving on many fronts. I have engaged one of the top law firms in Britain who will soon be filing 4 letters or 5, I don't know how many, whatever, and I'll have them up on my show tomorrow. I haven't read the whole letters, but the letters, they're coming up tomorrow. What they have done to me in England is not only arbitrary and suspicious, given that my show is not even broadcast in the UK, but it's illegal. And I've quoted Article 10, Article 19. And the fact of the matter is, this is all going to come out in the wash. Savage, the radio host of the Savage Nation, which broadcasts in San Francisco on KNW 910 AM and almost 400 other stations, said he does not intend to let the UK Home Secretary have the last word after she has lumped him in with a group of truly dangerous individuals. Savage vowed today that his representatives will appeal to the White House to seek redress from President Obama and said he intends